It's really a shame that we still suffer from so much poverty throughout the world, because we have enough resources to eliminate poverty, especially child poverty. Children happen to be poor because of the families or communities where they just happen to be born. There is no fault for them to be poor. And it's always good to remember the words attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, who said, in the world there are enough resources to satisfy everybody's needs, but not everybody's greed. And that is the main thrust of the problem. The distribution of these resources, the distribution of assets, the distribution of the benefits and rewards to these assets, which are all related to issues of distribution of power, which affect discrimination, budgets, how markets function, etc., which is actually what perpetuates poverty. If you're thinking of eradicating or eliminating poverty, we have to remember that poverty is multidimensional. It includes lack of income, but it also includes lack of services, lack of other assets, which are all associated with deprivations or the non-fulfillment of certain rights. Rights that we call constitutive of poverty. Consequently, we need to have a set of policies which address all of this, and some can be taken in the short term, some in the medium term, and some have an impact in the longer term, especially when we think of breaking the intergenerational transmission of poverty. So if we want to break that, we need to work on several fronts, which includes legislation, it includes policies, and includes budgets. The type of legislation we're talking about are the elements that facilitate participation of the community in order to enable them to shape their own future, but also regulation in terms of how markets work, regulation how the benefits of work get distributed. And this leads to the issues of social policy. We need to have social protection so that every family can have sort of guaranteed minimum incomes. Social protection also includes insurance, because some families fall into poverty when they are hit by some shock or risk or bad events in their lives. We also need to have social protection which empowers and facilitates families to access different social services, including, for example, health, including scholarships for children. And these are all practical solutions which many countries have already implemented. There are many countries, even low or very low income countries, that were able to provide universal health care to all mothers and children under 5, for example, or to provide universal primary and secondary education to all children. So these things are feasible. They help to alleviate poverty in the short term, but also contribute to build the skills that these people will need eventually to grow out of poverty themselves, which leads to the other issue, which is, even if you're educated, even if you're healthy, you need to have a job. You have to have a way to get your own income. That means macroeconomic policies have to be geared towards ensuring that everybody has a job. And these jobs have to be productive so that they can sustain a good, decent wage, which means we need to engage in productive policies, technological, industrial policies, etc. But also we need to regulate the labor markets. These international initiatives are crucial for the elimination of poverty. Of course, we are at the end tail of the MDGs, but the basic fact of the MDGs is they really made a big push throughout the world to guarantee the access to those services I was talking about: access to water, access to housing, access to sanitation, access to health, access to education for everybody. And there is one little hidden goal in the MDGs that everybody forgets about, which is to guarantee a minimum level of consumption for the bottom 20% of the population, which addresses issues of equity, although that is usually forgotten. Now, there is also the social protection floor, which, as I was saying earlier, is fundamental to establish social protection mechanisms throughout all countries in the world, and there is plenty of evidence that this is affordable even to the countries with the lowest income. And maybe some of these countries require the richer countries to live up to their own promises and their own moral and legal obligations under certain international treaties.